welcome to this month in Warhammer Underworlds. This is my new monthly YouTube show dedicated to bringing you all the monthly news for Warhammer Underworlds. It's perfect for those looking to recap on any Warhammer Underworlds news that they've missed out on, or just want a monthly update of what's happened. Each news item will have its own timestamp, which you can find in the episode description. For the first installment, I'll be covering everything that's happened in Warhammer Underworlds for the month of June 2020. First, we have the biggest news item for Warhammer Underworlds. June saw the release of a long overdue and much needed Forsaken and Restricted list, along with a brand new designer's commentary. I've already written an in-depth article on the subject, which you can find on my website, canyonrollercrit.com. But the biggest shake-up was the new Forsaken and Restricted list, which added Hunter's Reflexes as a brand new Forsaken card, effectively removing it from the game, along with numerous other problematic universal cards being restricted, along with another major item being faction cards being restricted as well. Overall, I'm really happy with the new Forsaken and Restricted list. Hunter's Reflexes going wasn't that big of a deal, but it's great for the health of the game. All of the restricted new universal cards are just great because they were basically in every deck, and every deck was starting to become the same. Also, they were very strong cards, and some should have been restricted a long time ago, like Restless Prize and Survival Instincts. But overall, it just helps make everyone really balanced. It brings down a lot of the warbands. Like restricting faction cards was a must at this point, personally. Like hitting Grimwatch was definitely needed. Thorns, Varkarv got errated, so he can only push once per turn, which helps bring down the power of the Thorns while also bumping the effectiveness of warbands like Sepulchral Guard and Zarbag's Gits. Cursebreakers took a little bit of a hit to make them less efficient. Hrothgorn's Man-Trappers took a bit of a hit because they had a really uninteractive Turtle Control build, which is pretty much nerfed. And even Lady Harrow's Mournflight got hit as well. And it's just basically brought up the level of all the other warbands, so now there's no real definitive best warband anymore, or even like group of best warbands. The game is just much more balanced again and just really fun to play. It's encouraged me to go back playing competitively again, just because the game was getting a bit boring. Yeah, and this is just a great change. Once again, Games Workshop have done a great accompanying community article, which you can find on warhammercommunity.com, written by the game creator David Sanders, which helps explain some of the choices made for the new Forsaken and Restricted list, which is just great. It's nice to see that community interaction from the game developers to the community and giving a bit of a rationale about why cards are restricted. I think it's really important this day and age, because even like with people like me and other content creators explaining why cards are here, and like obviously I will know why, but I think it's really good that the developers are making contact with the community to tell, yeah, this was too strong and we needed to hear it. But always, I highly recommend reading the full article, and you can find that linked in the episode description. The designer's commentary is also a great new addition. It virtually covers all issues and rule interactions raised by the community that needed clarifying. There's key stuff to remember, such as Spikeclaw, Swarm, and Stormsire's Cursebreakers inspiration timings. Just like there's a whole slew of information on there, specifically how Stormsire's Cursebreakers work in relation to Sphere of Gur, because Sphere of Gur has its own unique mechanics as a spell card. But yeah, generally it's been really comprehensive and a bunch of helpful clarifications that everyone should find useful. I mean, unfortunately, we still have amazing questions that almost top the FAQ clarification of, can Gartok be driven back, despite his fighter card clearly saying he can't be driven back? With my favorite being brought to bay. Does enemy territory specify my enemy's territory? Yes. And is the trap a fighter, despite not having a fighter card or any sort of characteristics? And the answer is not a fighter. Just trap. But despite those soul-crushing questions, it's been a really good designer's commentary. Like, excellent. There's virtually nothing, I think, that's left ambiguous, except a really fringe question about the blue horror, which is just weird. Not worth talking about. But generally, it's been a really great designer's commentary, and it helps speed up games and people's understandings of what rules misconceptions they may have. The next major news item that happened in June was the announcement that Nova is over. Copyright. For 2020 at least. Anyway, the organisers put out an official statement saying why Nova has been cancelled. Once again, it proves that sadly nothing can stand up to the global infection going on at the moment. Why is this important for Warhammer Underworlds? Well, for my non-American friends, it means that there now are no more Grand Clashes for 2020. It also means that the Warhammer Underworlds 2020 Masters that were going to be held in Nova, it's cancelled. This could be seen as a blessing or a curse for Warhammer Underworlds, depending on your viewpoint of the Masters, as it's been a very divisive subject, partly because it was basically going to be an American-only Grand Clash with who could travel. I also have my own personal views on how Masters was handled, but I'd still like to thank the Nova organisers for cancelling it, just because safety comes first. We can play tournaments at any time, but I hope Games Workshop will use the time to reevaluate the Masters and bring something that everyone as a community as a whole can enjoy over. But yeah, no more Grand Clashes for 2020. Competitive circuit is unfortunately over, which would have been the first for a Games Workshop game. But all we can hope for is to see it again in 2021 or even 2022. Turning to more positive news, Warhammer Underworlds Online saw the release of their first downloadable content warband, the chosen... Thorns of the Briar Queen! Yes, the game has now deviated from its Shadespire game plan, for better or for worse, depending on your point of view. You can purchase it for a fairly reasonable price of $5.99 for UK viewers, but it varies depending on your region. While it's great to see a new surprise warband, it's a shame not to see the rest of the Shadespire warbands, as honestly, there's very little point playing with warbands like the Chosen Axes whenever they may drop now, just because Thorns do everything they do, but basically better. Although, once again, this is more of a topic that deserves its own video. However, it is worth mentioning what this means for Warhammer Underworlds Online as a whole. With this new shift in direction, we could potentially see any warband next, but more importantly, an update to the core game rules to reflect what's currently legal at the moment, basically using Beastgrave rules over Shadespire rules. I, for one, would love this change as it just makes the game more streamlined and more fun, and appealing as a product as a whole. To add to this, Steel Sky Productions have also released, very recently, a new planned release roadmap for Warhammer Underworlds Online via their official Discord channel and their Twitter. While no fixed dates are given, all of this is great to see, honestly. It shows an increased uptake in the content production for Warhammer Underworlds Online, while answering a lot of the issues people have had with the game and fears. This is still one to watch, but it's really a great sign of health for the game and hope. Still, if you're interested to see how Thorns of the Briar Queen may have fared in Warhammer Underworlds Online, then you can check out my Twitch channel at CannyRollerCrit on Twitch, because I regularly stream Thorns of the Briar Queen, and you can see how I do with the Chain Rasp Horde. Podcast Corner is a regular part of This Month in Warhammer Underworlds. It's part of the show where I briefly go over the podcast for Warhammer Underworlds released during the current month, with this one being for June. First up, we have Battle for Salvation, a long-time Underworlds podcast. After a short hiatus of sorts, they are back to talk about the latest Forsaken and Restricted List update. Path to Glory, another long-time Underworlds podcast, do the same, but fill the airways with lots of Warhammer Underworlds content in podcast form, ranging from the latest Forsaken and Restricted List update, warband spotlights, tournament data, as well as their current roadmap for marking their 1-year anniversary. Chatting Crit by Steel City Underworlds also brings you a great episode all about how to prepare yourself for tournaments, featuring yours truly. And then finally, there's me and Critcast, my own podcast, bringing you the second episode of my monthly podcast with special guest David Smee from Reading, and the topic of the in-depth look at deck construction for Warhammer Underworlds and how to help improve your own deck building skills. You can find the link to all these podcasts in the episode description below. Tournaments and events is another regular part of the show, going over all the major tournaments and events that have happened during the current month for Warhammer Underworlds. Despite lockdown preventing tournaments from being played, there are still events going on in many different forms, while still having respectable turnouts. While there are no more grand clashes going on, I'll pretty much only be covering tournaments that don't need people to meet up and physically play together, as I basically don't want to encourage death. First up, we have the 4th webcam tournament ran by the Straight Outta Shadespire guys, hosted on Zoom, which was also streamed and commentated by me on my official Twitch channel. You can watch it back live for free on my Twitch, and very soon, right here on my YouTube channel. The tournament had its biggest turnout so far, with 14 players and 10 unique warbands. The latest Forsaken and Restricted list was in use too, so everything was legal and up to date. For those wanting to know the full results, spoilers, Ripper's Snarlfangs came 3rd, while Thundrick's Profiteers took 2nd and 1st, with the winner being Bass. Overall, it was an amazing tournament with players from all over the world. We had players from Malaysia, America, Europe, London, everywhere. It was great. As always, entry is free. So if you're interested in playing or even watching, the next one is scheduled for Saturday, the 11th of July, and I will be streaming and commentating that again. Next up, we have the weekly Warhammer Underworlds Online tournaments. These play out as weekly qualifiers, with the final hosted towards the end of the month, taking the winners from the qualifying rounds. The whole process has been taken over now by Path to Glory Gaming, so if you're interested in playing, feel free to check them out on their websites. It's a great way for Warhammer Underworlds Online content, as you get free tournament play. And they also have free prizes for winning, ranging from Games Workshop vouchers to prizes such as free DLC. Like currently, you can, if you play for the month of June, you will win the Thorns of the Briar Queen. It's currently playing out live right now while I'm recording, so I don't have the final results, but it's been going on for a while, and it's great to see support for the game. Finally, we have the monthly Warhammer Underworlds tournaments ran on Vassal. June's Vassal Clash attracted 45 players, a slight downturn on May's 62 players, but still a great turnout nonetheless. Once again, the new Forsaken and Restricted list was in use for this tournament as well. In the end, after a bloody final, Ollie Bond from Steel City Underworlds managed to beat Grand Clash winner and multiple Vassal Clash winner, legend Tommy Conboy, in a tense 4-round final. Vassal continues to prove to be another great way to play Warhammer Underworlds during these lockdown times. If you're interested in playing, these are held monthly, and the next tournament for July is scheduled to be Saturday the 25th of July. Finally, to round things off, we have the summary of my Warhammer Underworlds content for June. First off, I have an article I've written called Warhammer Underworlds Card Storage, which covers all card storage questions and queries you may have for Warhammer Underworlds, as well as showing what I do. It's just another comprehensive guide to help people on how to store their cards. Finally, we have the summary of my content for June. First up, we have my article Warhammer Underworlds Card Storage, which is a detailed guide for how to store your cards in Warhammer Underworlds, showing what I've done and giving a list of products you can use and guides. Then we have my article going over the webcam tournament for the Straight Out of Shadespire guys, Critcast Episode 2, which is my podcast this month on deck construction, an in-depth article on the latest Forsaken and Restricted list, including deck builds and deck lists for the 5 warbands who had restricted cards. Then we have an article on my YouTube channel, because I'm on YouTube now, if you somehow didn't know. And then finally my Twitch, which I've been regularly streaming on. I'm now an affiliate, so if you subscribe, you get a shiny new crit emote. But also I've been using it to cover my escapades on Warhammer Underworlds Online, as well as webcam gaming and tournaments and events. I plan to regularly stream tournaments and events. But if there's a tournament you'd like to see or want me to cover, let me know and get in touch with the tournament organizer who runs it. And just let them know you'd like to see it covered, and I'd be more than happy to cover it. And there you have it, all your Warhammer Underworlds news for June 2020. I hope you enjoyed my new informative installment, and it just goes to show you, Warhammer Underworld is still alive and kicking. As always, stay informed and keep rolling crits.